Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. So in this video today, we'll be solving some sample scenario-based question and answers for your PMP certification exam in 2023. So we'll be covering a wide range of topics from the PMP exam syllabus, starting from Waterfall project management and moving on to hybrid and agile project management. So if you are preparing for the PMP certification exam in 2023, this video will help you understand the type of questions that you might expect in the exam. Now, while solving the questions in this video, I will time and again refer to this video on my YouTube channel where I have discussed the exact framework which you need to use while solving scenario-based question and answers in the PMP exam. So make sure you watch that video as well during the initial stages of your exam preparation. Also, I would like you to track your performance while you solve the questions with me today in this video, okay? So as part of today's exercise, the target would be to get all the 5 out of 5 questions correct, okay? However, if you are able to get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct, you may consider yourself fairly well prepared for the PMP exam. Now, anything less than that, you might need a bit more preparation, okay? So let's start with question number 1.
Question number 1, guys. Pause the video, read the question properly and try to answer it before we start solving this together. Okay, so let's start solving question number 1 together. The interior designing team wants to build a model show home to advertise a holiday retreat project to potential buyers. Okay, they have approached a project management consultancy firm to develop the project approach. What should the consultancy firm do to begin the development process? Now, a very important thing to note here, guys, is about the product which is being discussed in this question. Okay, so the product is not the entire holiday retreat, but a model show home. Okay, so you can think of this as a prototype maybe. Okay, so let's look at the options one by one. Work with the interior designing team to break down the requirements into story points. Okay, now that looks like a reasonable option to me. You can say that it is important to break down the requirements into story points, which will help you to plan the sprint or the iterations. Okay, so let's hold this option for now. Option B, meet with the subject matter experts to identify all risks and develop risk management plan. Now this is an incorrect option, guys, and we can eliminate it straight away. And this is primarily because of the fact that it is a very generic statement, and identifying all of the risks at the beginning of a prototype product is not a very sensible approach, and it is not a very reasonable approach as well. Okay, so primarily because of this superlative of all, we can eliminate this option because it is not feasible to identify all of the risks at the beginning of a project. Okay, option C, review the business case to understand the benefits management plan. Now, it might make sense that to understand the benefits management plan, you need to review the business case. But the problem with this option is, guys, it is no way linking to the scenario or the context of the question. Okay, so beware of such type of options, which are true if they are evaluated standalone, but when compared to the scenario or the context of the question, it doesn't have any linkage to it. Okay, and for this reason, we can eliminate option C. Option D, collect requirements for the minimum viable product to represent the model show home. Now this is also a very good option, guys, because it is proposing that you should think about how to develop the minimum viable product first, because the show home is a model show home, right? It is not the entire holiday retreat project. Okay, so now after the first iteration, we are left with option A and option D. Now, as I was mentioning previously, guys, if you assess option A very critically, option A is talking about breaking down the requirements of the project in its entirety into story points just at the point of developing the prototype. Okay, you do not need, or you may not have such amount of detail at the beginning of a project when you are only developing the prototype. Okay, because the feedback from the prototype might influence how the project requirements will pan out at the later stages. Okay, so for this reason, guys, option A is also incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is option D, which is to collect requirements from the minimum viable product, which is the model show home in this scenario, to develop the project approach as has been asked in the question scenario.
If you are liking this video, guys, please press the like button. Also, if you are preparing for the PMP exam in 2023, make sure you check out my mock exam simulator and my 35 PDU course on Udemy. Both the courses are very high rated among the students, and I'll provide the links in the description section of this video. Now let's move on to question number 2.
Right, so question number 2, guys. Pause the video, read the question properly, and try to answer it before we move forward. Okay. Right, so let's start solving the question. In a mobile app development project, which started with a fairly defined scope, the product owner has highlighted that the application will fail to meet some of the key requirements due to an inherent design flaw. Okay. Correcting this will take the project well over its set tolerances of time and cost, and the project sponsor is reluctant to sign off additional time or any additional funding for the project as well. Okay, what should the project manager do first? Okay, now if we try to categorize it as a type 1 or a type 2 question, this looks like a type 2 question which talks about a sequence of approach in which you should address a problem as a PMP style project manager. Okay, I would recommend that you go back and watch this video on my YouTube channel that talks about how to deal with type 1 and type 2 questions. Okay, so this is a type 2 question. Now let's look at the options one by one. Option A, call a meeting with the customer and negotiate an acceptance. Okay, now this is a very less preferable option, guys, because in the end, your first approach as a project manager is not to go to the customer and start negotiating a scope miss, okay, from your side basically. Okay, so it is very important that if there is a mistake that has happened in the project for scope miss, for maybe any changes in the requirements which you were not able to incorporate at the right point of time, your first action should not be to go and ask for a benefit of doubt from the customer and negotiate acceptance. Okay, that may be the last option you would like to explore, but it is definitely not the first option. Okay, so that is the reason why option A is incorrect. Option B, explore fast tracking options to accelerate schedule. Okay, now if you know fast tracking, guys, it generally comes with an additional cost. Okay, so even if you are able to gain on schedule, there is a high probability that you will end up spending more funds in the project to execute the fast tracking options. Okay, so that is the reason option B is incorrect as well, because if you see here, your sponsor is not allowing you additional time, nor he or she is allowing you any additional funding as well. Okay, let's look at option C. Raise a change request to initiate design correction. Now, this may look like a feasible approach on the face of it, but consider this, that once you raise a change request, there is additional time to process the change request, to evaluate the change request, to ask for additional funding at the end of the change request, or maybe additional time at the end of the change request, etc. etc. Okay, so it's a fairly long drawn process, guys, and for that reason, option C is also not a very feasible option to me. Okay, so I will eliminate option C as well. Now let's look at the final option, which is option D. Perform a risk review meeting with best value option analysis, and that looks like a very feasible option to me. Now when you do a risk review meeting, you evaluate the different options as a part of the risk response. Okay, so for example, in this scenario, a risk response could be rolling out a mini version of the project as a minimum viable product. That can be one of the responses. Okay, another response could be maybe looking for outsourcing some low cost design components to make the product work as per the specifications. That can be another option. Maybe you cut a few scope items just to make the product work, and then you see how you can manage the scope and schedule at the later stages of the project to accommodate the rest of the requirements. Now, there can be a lot of options, guys, but what a risk review meeting does is that it evaluates all these options and performs a risk to reward ratio or a risk benefit analysis to recommend the best option forward. Okay, so that looks like a very reasonable approach to me, and that is the reason why option D is the correct answer to this question.
Now I hope you are finding this video useful, right? If you do, please subscribe to my channel PMP with Ray. It will really motivate me to create more such content for you to help you prepare for your PMP exam. And now let's move on to question number 3.
Question number 3, guys. Pause the video, read the question properly, and try to select an answer before we solve this together. Okay, so let's start solving the question. A subcontractor is uncertain about the timeline estimates of a work package which needs to be committed to the project manager for a hotel refurbishment project. Okay, It has come out of a brainstorming session that the work package will take 28 days to complete using predictive methods, 12 days to complete with Agile, and 18 days to complete using a hybrid approach. How much should the subcontractor quote as time needed to complete the work package using the triangular estimation technique? Okay. Now, the reason why I have put this question as a part of this exercise, guys, is to help you bust the myth that in the PMP exam, you will not have any numerical questions. Okay. There will be definitely numerical questions in the PMP exam, and they might test your understanding about the different topics of estimation techniques, different topics of critical path methods, maybe different topics of earned value management, etc., etc. So the only difference is previously in the PMP exam, the questions were very direct, but over the changes that has happened to the exam over the last few months, the type of numerical questions that you will get in the exam will now be more application oriented, linked to a project management scenario, as you see as an example with this question. Okay, now let's come back to this question. So it is a very straightforward question, guys. It is asking you that as a triangular estimation technique, how much will be the estimated time, where you have the pessimistic estimate as 28 days, optimistic estimate at 12 days, and the most probable estimate as 18 days. Okay, now if you know the triangular estimation technique formula, this question is a cakewalk for you. Okay, so what is the triangular estimation technique? It is your pessimistic estimate plus your most probable estimate plus your optimistic estimate divided by 3. So it's basically a 3-point estimation in the framework of a triangle, and that is why the formula is P plus M plus O by 3. So if you apply this formula with P is equal to 28 days, M is equal to 18 days, and O is equal to 12 days, and divided by 3, the correct answer to this question is option A, which is 19.33 days. Okay, now a quick disclaimer: please do not confuse between the beta distribution and the triangular estimation. Okay, I would like you to put in the comment section of this video that what according to you is the estimation formula when you are using a beta distribution estimate, okay, and you are not using a triangular estimate. Let me see how well you are prepared for your PMP exam. Okay, I will hide the correct answer within the comment section below. Now back to this question. Using this formula, the correct answer to this question is option A, which is 19.33 days.
With that, let's now move on to question number 4.
Question number 4, guys. Okay, please note that this is a multi-select question. Okay, so try to answer it before we solve it together. Right, so let's start solving the question. A management consulting organization is transitioning from a predictive way of working to an agile way of working. Okay, however, the scrum master is observing constant misses in deadlines for planned story points. Okay, also the team behavior has been very passive during the transition process. The Scrum Master is concerned and wants to improve the morale and the ongoing productivity for the team. Which of the actions should you ideally take as a project manager or as a Scrum Master in this scenario? Okay, and it will categorically tell you in the PMP exam that how many options you need to choose from the options provided. Okay, in a typical multi-select question. So let's start evaluating the options one by one. Provide a training session on estimation techniques to enable the team do a better job while estimating the story points. Okay, now that seems a reasonable option to me, because if you see that the organization is transitioning from a predictive side to a agile side. Okay, so there is definitely a bit of a learning curve with the team members, where they used to do an estimation using predictive method and now they have to use agile way of working to do those same estimates using story points. Okay, so that might need training, that might need a bit of hand holding from the project manager or the scrum master. Okay, so option A seems like a reasonable option to me, so let's hold it for now. Option B: use visual representation tools such as burn up and burn down charts to show story points completion. Okay, so that also looks like a reasonable option to me, that when you use visual representation like burn up charts or burn down charts in Agile, it gives you a very direct way of communicating whether you are on track or whether you are off track in terms of a schedule which is specific to a sprint or a iteration. Okay, so that way option B also seems like a reasonable option to me. Let's look at option C. Accelerate the schedule by reducing the project backlog via a backlog refinement exercise. Okay, now can you tell me guys that what is the problem with option C? The problem with option C lies in the word of reducing. Now, if you know that what a backlog refinement exercise is in Agile, we all know that a backlog refinement exercise is done to prioritize story points across different iterations. Backlog refinement is not reducing the story points or not eliminating items from the project backlog. Okay, so that is why option C is incorrect, because using a backlog refinement exercise, you prioritize story points. Okay, you do not reduce them. So that is why option C is incorrect. Option D, add more iterations to the project to break down the story points further. Again, that's a definitely incorrect option, guys, because already the team is struggling to complete the story points and to meet the deadlines, right? So it is not a very prudent approach to break the story points again into smaller iterations without addressing the root cause of the delay with your team, right? So that is why option D is also an incorrect option. Option E, plan a training on team motivation to understand their career aspirations. Now, this is a very fleeting option, guys. You can do a team motivation training to understand their career aspirations, but it is no way linked to this scenario in question. Okay, so again, beware of such options which might look like a good option in a general sense of project management, but these kind of answer choices do not link in any way to the context or the project management scenario provided in the question. Okay, so that is why option E is incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is option A and option B. Also, a very important point to note for option D, guys, is at this condition where the team is struggling to manage with the existing work, where the team is transitioning from, let's say, Waterfall to a Agile project. If you as a Scrum Master start breaking down the story points into further smaller chunks, it will become a lot of micromanagement for you. Okay, now the team who is not trained, who is not capable with the agile way of working, having so many story points to manage, having so many story points to prioritize, might not be a good approach to solve the situation. Okay, so that is also one of the reasons why option D is incorrect.
I hope you are tracking your performance, guys, right? Remember, the target is to get all the 5 out of 5 questions correct, but as a minimum, you should try to get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct, okay? So here comes the final one.
Question number 5, guys. Please read the question and try to answer it before we move forward. Also, please note that this is a multi-select question. So let's start solving the question together. During a sprint review meeting, one of the team managers reprimands her subordinates in a disrespectful manner. Okay. This has made the atmosphere in the meeting quite tense, and you, as the project manager, need to tackle this situation and get the review meeting back on track. Which actions should you ideally take in this situation? And it is asking you to select two options from option A, B, C, D, and E. So let's start evaluating them one by one. Option A, remind the team manager about her roles and responsibilities. Incorrect. Okay, again, a classic example of an answer choice which is in no way linked to the project scenario. Option B, calm the atmosphere in the meeting by providing a short lecture on emotional intelligence. Okay, all nonsense, guys. Okay, you can do this lecture talks in the meeting, but at the end of the day, you need to ask the question that whether you are taking one step forward to solve the problem at hand rather than doing some generic stuff. Okay, so option B is also incorrect. Option C, reiterate the team ground rules and provide some time to each of the team members to present their opinions and concerns. Looks like a quite holistic option to me. Okay, so I'll hold this option for now, because this option looks at the multiple aspects of servant leadership, which is reiterating the team ground rules, providing time to each of your team members to voice his or her opinion. Okay, so thereby giving a freedom of speech, etc., etc. Okay, so a lovely option which takes into account the servant leadership principles. So I will hold this option for now. Option D, perform an MBTI assessment on the team manager to understand her motivators and dissatisfiers. Okay, again, it's a pretty generic option, guys, but let's hold it for now and let's look if there are any better options that are available. Okay, now having an MBTI assessment, understanding the motivators of the team manager might help you in the long term, but let's see and evaluate which action should you ideally take in this situation where you need to get the review meeting back on track, right? This is your problem at hand. So any option you choose should be a step towards solving this problem, okay? Not a generic or a overarching problem of the project, okay? Let's look at option E. Facilitate the meeting by asking team members to suggest ways to resolve the points of conflict. Again, it's a good option, guys. It touches the element of conflict management for servant leadership where you are facilitating. Okay, so you are not directing and solving something by yourself. You are facilitating the meeting and you are approaching the whole situation in terms of managing conflict. Okay, so option E is also a nice option which could be considered in this situation. So the correct answer to this question is option C and option E, guys. Okay, and A, B, and D are incorrect for the precise reasons as we have discussed for this scenario or in this context.
So that's the end of the quiz, guys. Let me know in the comment section below how much you scored, okay? I'd be very interested to know that. However, even if you have scored less, there is no reason to worry, okay? You just need a bit more practice. Keep an eye on this channel because I'll be uploading more such practice Q&A videos for your PMP exam in future. Meanwhile, make sure you do check out my Udemy courses, okay? And I will see you in the next video.